It seems a fair question. Why would Islamic State, a jihadist organisation with ideological roots in Sunni Salafism and geographic origins in the Middle East, be keen to establish itself in the Democratic Republic of the Congo? The very short answer: why would they not? A slightly longer codicil to the very short answer: the DRC is in many respects actually a vastly more promising territory for a movement of Islamic State's ambitions than the Middle East. An even longer answer: the DRC is enormous. You could accommodate 3.5 Frances within its borders, so plenty of places to hide. It is fractious, the central government in Kinshasa is ineffectual and corrupt, and therefore going to bother you less than most. It is poor, and people, especially young men, and especially less educated young men, lacking other opportunities, are often eager enlistees for anyone offering them a weapon and a cause. It is absolutely a swarm with possible recruits and partners. By the UN's best guesses, more than 100 non-state armed groups are at large in the country. It offers considerable revenue-raising opportunities given its colossal mineral wealth and murky regulatory environment. It is geographically hospitable to any outlaw outfit, being lushly festooned with jungle cover. Islamic State's former caliphate in Iraq and Syria, and similar endeavours in Algeria and Mali, learned the hard way that it's hard to hold on to desert when your adversaries have modern air forces and you don't. And it's in Africa, where those countries which have modern air forces are somewhat less likely to take a direct interest.
A Catholic church in the town of Komanda in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's Ituri province, shattered on Sunday by an attack that is believed to have been carried out by Islamic State-backed rebels.
Earlier this week, militants attached to Islamic State's DRC affiliate, the Allied Democratic Forces, we will come back to them, attacked a church in Komanda, a small town in Ituri province in the DRC's northeast near its border with Uganda. At least 43 of the people worshipping at a midnight mass inside were hacked to death with machetes, among them 9 children, and several businesses in the vicinity were looted and/or burned. It was, as is usually the case with Islamic State spectaculars anywhere, an exhibition of both ability and willingness to commit arbitrary brutality by way of demonstrating to those who do not wish to be ruled by them, or those who do wish to challenge them, that these are the risks you are running. The attack on the Komanda Church follows similar attacks in the same swath of the DRC earlier in July, which left at least 82 people dead. Alert listeners will recall that a minute or so ago we said we would come back to the perpetrators of these massacres, the somewhat ironically named Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF. Here is where we will do exactly that. The ADF's betrothal to Islamic State is a relatively recent development. The ADF's history in its current form dates back to the mid-1990s, when a bunch of Ugandan rebel militias decided to pool their resources. These included the National Army for the Liberation of Uganda, or NALU, whose whole thing is not much liking Uganda's long-serving President Yoweri Museveni, and excitable zealots associated with the Tablighi Jamaat tendency, whose whole thing is proselytizing an ultra-austere strain of Islam. The ADF's inaugural leader was Jamil Makulu, a former lieutenant of Osama bin Laden. He directed the ADF's rampages in the DRC until he was arrested in Tanzania in 2015 and remains remanded in Uganda, where the wheels of justice clearly turn creakily, though the DRC does occasionally remind that they have already sentenced Makulu to death in absentia and would be delighted to spare everyone the bother of another trial. The ADF's current leader is Musa Baluku, another Ugandan, on whose watch the ADF pledged allegiance in 2019 to the entity known as Islamic State Central Africa Province, or ISCAP. The name in itself a statement of Islamic State's undimmed ambitions of a global caliphate. Which is why events such as this week's attack on a church are something even more serious than a dreadful crime. They are a demonstration of resolve by an organisation which believes itself to have momentum and is seeking to use that to both terrorise its enemies and make itself attractive to volunteers from elsewhere. Plausible reports have it that IS-Cap already counts among its ranks foot soldiers from all over Africa. Western security services hopefully have a grip on the idea that Europeans daft enough to join Islamic State in the Middle East are daft enough to do similar in Africa, even if the nearest airport serviced by a handy budget carrier is further away from the front line. The Western world has considerable and ignoble form for ignoring the Democratic Republic of the Congo. From the 1990s into the first decade of this century, the DRC was racked by conflicts which killed or displaced millions and drew in the militaries of a dozen or so African countries and rarely made the news elsewhere. It might not be possible to take such a detached view of a resurgent Islamic State in the heart of Africa. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Muller.